Our economy, what would you do? An economic simulation game. An instructional video by Dennis Avola, found at EconSimulator.com. This is the EconSimulator homepage. Your assignment. The Federal Reserve and the U.S. Treasury Department need your help. They would like you to establish the monetary and fiscal policies that will increase our gross domestic product, reduce unemployment, decrease or stabilize inflation, while strengthening the U.S. dollar. You will have 4 time periods to make changes to several existing monetary and fiscal policies. A student workbook is available, and you can also follow the future developments of the EconSimulator on Twitter. To download EconSimulator, click on the free download address. Then click on Open to download this Excel spreadsheet. For Windows, Microsoft Excel 2003 or better, and for Mac users, Excel 2008 or better. This is the EconSimulator homepage spreadsheet. In the economic scoreboard, you are given the current key economic measures. The U.S. dollar index is set at 0.77. The inflation rate is low at 2%. The economy's GDP is at approximately 14.3 trillion. The unemployment rate is high at 9.8%, and the economy's money supply is at approximately 9.1 trillion. In the input scenario window on the right of the screen, allows you to make changes to several monetary and fiscal policies over 4 different time periods. The existing values for these policies are: the federal fund rate is at 0.25%. The value of currency in circulation is approximately $850 billion. The U.S. government spending rate of growth is set to 0%. Individual and corporate tax rates are 25% and 35% respectively, and the M1 required reserve rate set by the Federal Reserve is 10%. The players in our economy are shown in the flow diagram below: the U.S. banks, households, U.S. businesses, U.S. government, and international investors. Once you've made your monetary and fiscal policy changes in the input scenario screen above, you can view the effects of those changes upon each player in the economy. By clicking the drop-down box, you can select which time period you'd like to view. In our first time period, our goal is to reduce the high unemployment rate of 9.8%, strengthen the U.S. dollar, and growing the economy's GDP. We've elected to increase the federal fund rate to 0.5%, given that the U.S. government spending is expected to increase by 10% during this first time period. The effects of these 2 economic policy changes is shown in the economy scoreboard. With the federal fund rate increased to 0.5%, this initially will drive down inflation as inputs become less expensive. Consequently, household consumption will initially increase, causing corporate profits and payroll to rise. With U.S. government expenditures increasing also during this time period by 10%, the economy's GDP will also improve, leading to more investments from international investors. However, these economic conditions will increase the economy's money supply due to the increased corporate profits and international investments being deposited into the U.S. banking system. Therefore, with an increasing money supply and GDP by approximately 4% during this time period, the economy's inflation rate will ultimately rise slightly to 2.1%, with the unemployment rate dropping to 9.7%. To view the effects of these changes in the first time period, click on the drop-down box. In our second time period, our goal is to continue to reduce the high unemployment rate, stabilizing the inflation rate, strengthening the U.S. dollar, and growing the economy's GDP. We've elected to increase the federal fund rate to a full 1%, given that the economy's inflation rate has increased slightly and the U.S. government spending is expected to continue to increase by 10% during the second time period. In addition, we've increased our currency in circulation to $900 billion, and we've reduced the corporate tax rate to 33% in order to encourage business expansion and hiring. The effects of these multiple economic policy changes are shown in the economy scoreboard. Given that the economy's inflation rate has increased, household consumption is declining, but corporate profits are up because of the reduced tax rate. Increased profits will therefore create more employment, but will also increase the economy's money supply. And with continued growth of the government spending, the economy's GDP is increasing. However, during this time period, GDP growth of 3% is slowing down compared to the first time period, while the economy's money supply continues to grow rapidly at more than 4.5%. In our next time period, we will need to slow the economy's money supply, but continue to increase the economy's GDP while maintaining its inflation rate and strengthening the US dollar. To view the changes in the second time period, click the drop-down box for the second quarter view of the flow diagram. In our third time period, our goal is to reduce the 4+% growth of the economy's money supply, so to get control of its inflation rate, while continuing to reduce the high unemployment rate, growing the economy's GDP, and strengthening the US dollar. We've elected to reduce the federal fund rate to 0.5%, given that the economy's inflation rate has been increasing and the US government spending is expected to increase again by 10% during this time period. In addition, we have increased our M1 required reserve rate to slow the economy's money supply, and we've reduced the individual tax rate to 22% in order to encourage consumption and ultimately business profits, leading to additional hiring. The effects of these multiple economic policy changes are shown in the economy scoreboard. The US dollar has weakened due to the decrease in the federal fund rate, but the growth of the economy's money supply has slowed to less than 4% period to period. Unemployment continues to decline as businesses start to rehire workers to accommodate the increased consumption rate due to the reduction in personal taxes. The economy's GDP, however, is growing very rapidly at 6+% period to period because of increased government spending, increased consumption, and exports. Inflation remains stable for now. In our next time period, we'll need to slow the economy's GDP so that we maintain our inflation rate and continue to re-strengthen the dollar's index. To view your third period changes, click on the drop-down box. In our fourth time period, our goal is to reduce the 6+% growth of the economy's GDP so to get control of its inflation rate while continuing to reduce the high unemployment rate and re-strengthening the US dollar. We also want to maintain the growth of our economy's money supply. Therefore, we've elected to increase the federal fund rate to 0.75%, given that the economy's inflation rate will increase rapidly given the high growth of the economy's GDP. In addition, we have budgeted the growth of U.S. government spending to only 5% this time period. All other policies have been maintained from the previous time period, which provided increased consumption and business hiring while stabilizing the growth of the money supply. The effects of these two economic policy changes are shown in the economy scoreboard. The U.S. dollar has improved due to the increase in the federal fund rate, and the growth of the economy's GDP has slowed to a more manageable rate of 2.2%. Unemployment is stable as businesses are not reducing their workforce with consumption spending increasing from lower taxes, and the economy's money supply is also growing slowly at less than 2% period to period. However, the inflation rate is moderately increased as a result of the rapid growth of the GDP from the third time period. Students can now start over again by copying the fourth time period policy changes into the baseline column and erasing the other time period scenarios. To view the changes of the fourth time period, click on the drop-down box. Go. The student workbook is available. The table of contents shows the various exercises that each student will be able to do. It's a must-have for students.